So if I got dropped in a new state, one of the first things that I would do as an agent is I'd probably look for some of the low-hanging fruit. And the low-hanging fruit at that time is probably going to be the expired listings and the for sale by owners. So going back to what I said earlier, one of the things that I would do is I'd immediately start prospecting for the expired listings. I'd start prospecting for the for sale by owners, and I'd start there. The next thing that it's really important that you do is you create business profiles for yourself. And I appreciate what everybody's been saying about the web, but I learned really quickly on that most people weren't necessarily looking for me or my name on the internet. Now they were looking my name up just to validate who I was, but they weren't automatically Googling me for real estate. So when people are looking you up on the internet, they're looking more general terms. In my neighborhood, they might be looking up a term like Pasadena real estate or Pasadena real estate agent. And so really what I had to learn was how to get up in the rankings when they search for those specific terms. And so a lot of times people believe that social media, when we're sharing content on there, it's not that it's not valuable, but it's more valuable for Facebook, right, than it really is for you, or for Twitter, or for any of those other entities. Because the truth is, if you utilize social media the right way, you're sharing content that is then sending them back to your site, that's more valuable than you sending content through social media or that medium, right? Keeping them longer on Facebook, on Google+, or on LinkedIn. So the idea behind social media is, yes, it's a great tool to share your content, but at the same time, you also have to leverage it and use it as a tool to get them to come back to your site. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Because understand that another metric that Google uses is something called the bounce back rate, right? And so they study how long people stay on certain websites. And so if they're just going to Facebook and they're getting all your content from Facebook, then they're not necessarily going back to your site, which means they're not spending any time on your site, which means it lowers your ranking when people are looking up those general terms. So I hope that does make sense. Going back to what we're talking about in terms of social media, it's very important that you blend or blur the line between business and between social. In other words, it can't all just be business because then you're boring, but it can't all be social, right? Because then you look like all you're doing is partying all day long, right? And so it's really important that you blur the line between the two and that you share enough content to where it's still interesting and people still want to get to know you, but at the same time, they still see you as the professional and as the go-to person for what it is that we do. And lastly, one of the things that you need to do is you also need to make sure that you have business profiles, right? And so I can't really get into it today, I don't think we have the time, but you want to make sure that you have a Google My Business profile, right? That's very important. You want to make sure that you're on Bing Maps, right? And going back to what I heard earlier, yes, people do use Google, but they also still use Bing, and there is a certain age and certain demographics where they get their products or they get their laptops and they don't change the browsers and they're still using Microsoft Edge or Microsoft, what's the other browser, the Explorer, right? And so they're not switching to Google. Yes, a younger demographic may use it, but you want to make sure that you're on Bing Maps. And now that Apple is coming out with their own product and we may see an Apple car, they really are pushing their maps as well, and you can put your business listing on Apple Maps. So you need to make sure that you are, as an agent and as a business entity, you have those profiles, because those properties that those companies own, they carry a lot of weight. And so when they see that your website is on those profiles or on those platforms, it just adds more credibility to who you are.